The story begins with Do-hee, our main character, running scared on one misty night. She always feels like her life is uncertain, like navigating through a foggy night. As a man approaches, she wonders if he'll be a friend or foe and hopes he can help her. The scene shifts to a flashback to 200 years ago in the Joseon era, where a group of believers is praying at night. Suddenly, a demon appears in front of them. He blows up the candles and causes chaos. The demon, Jung-gu-won, leaves a red rose and makes a fiery exit. Jung-gu-won used to be human, but he somehow turned into a demon. He has wandered the earth for many years. He makes deals with desperate people, granting their wishes for 10 years, after which their souls will be sent to hell. Gu-won sees himself as an external force who gives value to those destined for misery. Later, Gu-won meets a hungry man, Park Bok-gyu, at the port during a famine. Gu-won tempts him with a fish and offers a deal. He reveals he's a demon and promises wealth for the next 10 years in exchange for Bok-gyu's soul. The hungry man excitedly agrees and signs a blood contract. Back in the present, Do-hee is attending the 2023 Korea CEO Awards, where she wins the prestigious CEO Award of the Year. Do-hee is a rich heiress and part of the Mirai Group, one of Korea's top beverage companies. A few days later, her secretary Shin brings concerning news about an article. It's revealed that someone has published bad news about Do-hee's work on their newly launched beverage. She believes someone from within the company is trying to seize power from her, so she asks Shin to investigate and report back. Do-hee also attempts to use this grave situation to get out of a blind date set up by her grandmother and chairwoman of Mirai Group, Ju Cheon-suk. Sadly, her attempt doesn't work. Her grandmother insists on Do-hee attending the date, threatening to skip her health checkup if she doesn't. With no other option, Do-hee goes to the hotel where the date is set to happen, promising to stay for at least 30 minutes to avoid being rude. Meanwhile, Gu-won, who continues to fulfill people's grants, realizes that the time is up for one of the contracts. This time, the man is the leader of a mafia group. But when Gu-won arrives to take the gangster's soul, he's unwilling to accept his fate. He attempts to fight and negotiate for a new contract, but Gu-won declines. Our demon hero points out that the gangster gained power and wealth during the 10 years. Shortly after, Gu-won takes the gangster's soul by using his power. He then stages the death as an accident. After the man passes away, Gu-won flees the scene, but he's noticed by one of the mafia members. In the meantime, there happens to be a mix-up with Do-hee's date. As a result, she ends up at the wrong hotel, where she encounters Gu-won, who is busy indulging himself. Our handsome demon is puzzled when Do-hee claims they're supposed to be on a date. Due to the misunderstanding, the more they try to talk, the more frustrated they become. Gu-won just wants to stay in peace, while Do-hee wants to figure out why this man is so rude and indifferent. They then realize that they haven't even introduced themselves, so Do-hee hands her card to Gu-won. Initially hesitant, Gu-won eventually gives her his card. It is then revealed that Gu-won, when not working as a demon and soul taker, runs the Sun Wool Foundation, an organization that supports traditional artists. When Do-hee's 30 minutes ends, she decides to leave the place. As she leaves, she unintentionally bumps into the mafia men, who have arrived at the hotel to avenge their leader's death. At the same time, a waiter is bringing over Gu-won's favorite cake for him. Filled with vengeance, the mafia men attempt to throw away the cake. In the ensuing chaos, Gu-won swiftly saves his cake while Do-hee excuses herself to the restroom. While Do-hee is in the restroom, Gu-won deals with the mafia men using his powers. He traps them inside a newspaper, but later lets them go, annoyed that they ruined his cake and interrupted his peaceful time. When Do-hee returns, she orders him to be less rude if they ever meet again. On her way back, Do-hee questions how her grandmother could set her up with such a rude person. She talks to Shin about the article, and Shin reveals that No Soo-an, the CEO of Mirai Group's subsidiary company, Mirai Apparel, is behind it. Do-hee is disappointed that someone in her family is always against her. It's revealed that Do-hee was actually adopted by Cheon-suk after her parents' death. The family comprises Chun Suk's son, No Suk Min, CEO of Mirai Electronics, his wife, Kim Se-ra, managing director of Mirai Electronics, and their shy son, No Do-gyang. There's also Chun Suk's daughter, No Su-an, with her twin sons, and Ju Seok-hoon, the nephew. Chun Suk, the grandmother, only trusts Do-hee, much to the frustration of other family members. During the ride back home, Do-hee receives a mysterious call from the company's finance head, Mr. Cha, claiming to have information that could make her the Mirai Group chairwoman. She then gets a cryptic goodbye message from Grandma Chun Suk, leading her to rush to the hospital. Do-hee is annoyed to discover it's just a prank. Grandma Chun Suk wants to celebrate Do-hee's birthday. We learn that Do-hee's parents died on her birthday 20 years ago, causing her to stop celebrating. Grandma Chun Suk wants Do-hee to find someone to be there for her after she's gone. So she gifts Do-hee 2 rings, one for her future partner and one for herself. Do-hee patiently explains that she doesn't wish to get married. Just then, Shin interrupts them and announces that Do-hee mistakenly went to the wrong date. Meanwhile, Gu-won continues managing his foundation with Pak Bok-gyu, the same fisherman from the Joseon era, and Ga-young, who is also from the same era, by his side. After talking with the grandmother, Do-hee visits the beach, reminiscing about her parents and the last time they celebrated her birthday. Elsewhere, the finance manager, who called Do-hee earlier claiming to have information, is mysteriously attacked and killed. After spending the day at the beach, Do-hee calls for a driver through an app. She gets into the vehicle and doesn't notice any inconvenience yet. However, the driver turns out to be the man who killed the finance officer. Do-hee notices there's something wrong when she gets a message from the driver app on her phone. The app says that her actual driver is still miles away. Realizing trouble, she tries to stay calm and asks the driver who he is. The man suddenly stops the car, telling her to ask why she's about to die instead. He cryptically reveals it's because of Grandma Chun Suk and attempts to knock her out using a chloroform-dipped handkerchief. Our clever heroine pretends to have fainted, and when the right time comes, she manages to get out of the car. In the meantime, Gu-won, in search of a new target from a clock tower, senses her desperate need to be saved. He then teleports to her location. Do-hee pleads for his help, believing he's her best chance at survival. Gu-won explains he can assist only if she agrees to a contract of 10 years. Left with no choice, Do-hee agrees to the deal. However, due to the urgency, Gu-won decides to confront the murderous man before finalizing the contract. As Gu-won fights the man and knocks him out, Do-hee seeks shelter under a bridge. Gu-won approaches to help her, but the man regains consciousness and drives the car toward them. Gu-won then attempts to teleport them, but his power suddenly doesn't work. At the same time, Do-hee slips from his grasp, while Gu-won, after realizing his power isn't working, jumps in with her. Consequently, they both fall into the water below. Inside the water, Do-hee regains consciousness first and tries to rescue Gu-won by clutching his wrist. However, she struggles to lift him to the surface. During the process, the demon mark on Gu-won's hand mysteriously transfers to hers. Sometime later, the pair wakes up ashore, and Do-hee is relieved they're alive. Just then, Gu-won notices that his demon mark is gone. He is shocked to see it on Do-hee's hand. Do-hee suddenly faints, therefore Gu-won takes her to the hospital. When Do-hee wakes up, they realize somehow Gu-won's tattoo ended up on her hand, giving her all his powers. Gu-won can only use these powers by touching Do-hee's hand. When Gu-won tells her about the tattoo and its abilities, Do-hee thinks he's just bluffing, so she ignores him. Poor Gu-won returns to his apartment and tells his situation to Pak Bok-gyu, who also works as his butler. After an investigation, Bok-gyu learns about the serious consequences if Gu-won doesn't make a new deal with humans. It turns out that if Gu-won fails to make contracts, he will eventually combust and die. Left with no choice, our hero heads out to look for desperate people to fulfill their needs in exchange for their souls 10 years later. However, without his powers, he miserably fails to make a deal with a wrestler who has multiple opponents. In the meantime, Do-hee, who is back on her feet, goes to the hospital where her grandma's being treated. She assists her grandma back home after she's discharged from the hospital. Her grandma got a clean bill of health, making Do-hee feel relieved. At home, Do-hee tells her grandma about the mysterious call from the company's finance head. She then asks Grandma Cheon-suk if she's hiding something. Cheon-suk says she's open about family matters, but not business. She tries to distract Do-hee with jokes, and Do-hee believes her, even though her facial expression suggests she might be keeping something secret. The situation seems suspicious, especially concerning Do-hee's parents' death, because it's revealed that Cheon-suk was present when their car exploded. During their talk, Seon-hook, Cheon-suk's nephew, comes with a company report. We learn that Seon-hook likes Do-hee, and Grandma Cheon-suk casually suggests they marry. Both Do-hee and Seok-hoon find this ridiculous and leave quickly. Later, Do-hee confronts No Soo-an, Cheon-suk's daughter, who is trying to harm Do-hee's public image with negative articles about her products. But Do-hee cleverly turns the tables by threatening to expose Soo-an's extramarital affairs, causing the latter to take down the negative articles. In the meantime, Gu-won realizes that he needs Do-hee's help to get back his powers. So he plans to woo her with his charming face. He manages to get her attention and take her to the riverside. He then attempts to drown her by throwing her into the water so that he can recreate the scene from the day his tattoo got transferred to her. Sadly, his plan doesn't work out. Feeling humiliated, Do-hee throws money at him, saying she doesn't owe him anything, that he doesn't have the right to treat her harshly just because he saved her life. Do-hee angrily leaves, and Gu-won is left feeling sorry. While going home, Do-hee's almost attacked with acid, but thankfully Gu-won quickly saves her. Sadly, he gets hurt in the process. His actions deeply impact Do-hee, and she thinks to herself about how his presence has changed everything in her life. This is when the tattoo on Do-hee's hand mysteriously turns red. Gu-won explains he saved her to protect his special tattoo. When Do-hee worries about his injuries, he magically heals himself, revealing to her that he's a powerful demon. But since the tattoo is transferred to Do-hee, he can only make use of his power when he is close to her. Later, Do-hee reports the acid attack to the police. They tell her the acid could have seriously harmed her, and she's lucky to be okay. Given the attack on the beach and now this acid incident, the detectives wonder why someone would want to harm her so much. While Do-hee talks to the police, a strange woman tries to warn Do-won about incoming danger. However, he ignores her because of her abnormal appearance. After Do-hee finishes giving her statement, Gu-won drives her home. On the way home, Do-hee suggests that Gu-won becomes her bodyguard to stay close and protect her and the important tattoo. However, Gu-won turns down the offer, thinking it's beneath him. He then drops her off and returns to his lavish yet ancient-looking apartment. Later that night, Do-hee watches the news and recognizes the company's finance head, Mr. Cha, as the man who had phoned her. The news reports that the finance head was accused of embezzlement and committed suicide. Concerned, Do-hee calls Grandma Cheon-suk to check on the company. Cheon-suk is surprised by Mr. Cha's death, but reassures Do-hee that everything is under control. After the call, Cheon-suk instructs her secretary to gather news articles about Mr. Cha's death and the company's financial statements for the last decade. Cheon-suk carefully reviews the statements and discovers something alarming. We then see her confronting a mysterious man in a leather jacket, accusing him of crossing the line and being involved in a murder. The man leaves silently, but clearly infuriated. The next morning, Gu-won wakes up feeling positive. He tells Bo-gyu that he can retrieve his tattoo by recreating the situation from the night he lost it. Suddenly, his fingers catch fire, causing chaos. This only indicates that he's combusting soon if he fails to find human souls and make a contract with them. Now terrified, Gu-won agrees to be Do-hee's bodyguard. He takes her to a rooftop, claiming it's the best spot to find desperate people who want nothing more than to fulfill their current needs. Just then, they hear a mother's plea for her dying child. Gu-won brings Do-hee along to a hospital to make a deal with the desperate mom. He then pressures the distressed mom into making a deal. The mom agrees to trade her soul and go to hell to save her child. Seeing this, Do-hee is disgusted that Gu-won takes advantage of people's desperation to survive. In frustration, she fires him as her bodyguard and walks away. Later that night, Gu-won tells Bokyu that he believes Do-hee will come around when she's in danger again. In return, Bokyu shares details about the night Gu-won lost his powers. Since it was the night of a full moon, they would have to wait until another full moon to get the powers back. This means they have to wait 28 more days for Gu-won to attempt to get his tattoo from Do-hee. The next day, Do-hee struggles to concentrate at work, haunted by Gu-won's deal with the desperate mom. Meanwhile, her secretary Shin works on finding bodyguards for her. Later, Do-hee is surprised to find Gu-won waiting outside her car, ready to be her bodyguard. The two then talk about why they changed their minds. Do-hee is curious about Gu-won's life, while for Gu-won, Do-hee is the only option to get his power back. While they chat, Do-hee receives a message from Grandma Cheon-suk. In the message, Cheon-suk expresses love for Do-hee and says it's her time to go. Do-hee thinks it's another prank by her grandma, but she asks Gu-won to drive to her place. Sadly, this time it is not a prank. Do-hee finds her grandma dead in her beloved greenhouse. Devastated, she pleads with Gu-won to save her, but he explains he can't bring the dead back to life. The scene shifts to Cheon-suk's funeral, where her children pretend to be miserable while praying their respects. Do-hee soon surprisingly learns that Grandma had ordered the formation of an audit team right before her death. However, something very urgent came up, so it was put on hold. Gu-won then offers Do-hee some wine and listens as she talks about her grandma. She shares a belief that people wear black at funerals to prevent the deceased spirit from following them home. Hearing this, Do-hee becomes upset since she's wearing black to say goodbye to her grandma. To comfort her, Gu-won uses his powers to change the color of her dress from black to white. During this moment, a butterfly appears in front of Do-hee, which she believes to be her grandma's spirit. Do-hee then expresses gratitude to the old lady for helping her when her parents died and hopes to meet again in their next lives. Afterward, the detectives reveal that Cheon-suk had taken diclofenac before her death, a drug she was allergic to. Do-hee finds this suspicious, so she connects it to the finance head Mr. Cha's death, the emergency audit, and the attacks on her life. However, Cheon-suk's son, Suk-min, and the family insist on keeping the true cause of death a secret to avoid negative consequences for the company's stock price. Do-hee confronts the family about it and reveals to everyone that her grandma was possibly murdered. Soon after, the family lawyer starts reading the will left behind by Cheon-suk, revealing the old lady's bequests. The real estate goes to Han Sarang Welfare Foundation, while the Mirai Group's management rights, shares of its affiliates, and everything else goes to none other than her cherished granddaughter, Do-hee. Suk-min and the rest of the family are shocked, but Do-hee is even more surprised when she learns about the condition attached to her new responsibilities. She must get married within a year or everything will go to the Han Sarang Welfare Foundation. It's also revealed that to help her family cope with this last surprise, Grandma Cheon-suk left letters for her children. She has criticized how money has made Suk-min and the family heartless. After the hearing, Soo-an loses her composure and attempts to attack Do-hee, but to no avail. Meanwhile, Do-hee approaches Gu-won and takes the daring step to propose to him. Unfortunately, he turns her down, surprising her. Gu-won explains that he is her bodyguard and wants to keep work and personal life separate. He then drives her home safely. After he leaves, Do-hee realizes she's alone for the first time in 17 years. Before she can process her feelings, notifications about her rejected proposal pop up, making her all the more depressed. She later meets Do-won and demands an honest answer about why he rejected her marriage proposal. Gu-won insists he wants to stay single, and Do-hee claims to feel the same, but she's certainly embarrassed. Gu-won points out she could have asked any man, but chose him, so he wants to know why. The two continue to bicker about the proposal until Do-hee angrily walks away. Do-won suggests giving her a ride, expressing concern about another potential attack. During the ride, Do-hee reflects on life and why we often feel sad. She believes it's because many of us seek happiness in things that turn out to be fake. She shares about her late parents to Do-won and how they died in a terrible car accident. Do-hee also reveals that she turned to work to avoid feeling sad, guilty, and self-pity. She eventually falls asleep in the car. Quietly, Gu-won places Chun-suk's letter, which she left at the funeral, in her bag before waking her up. They bid each other goodnight when they arrive at the apartment door. Do-hee then adds Gu-won as an emergency contact on her phone so that it would be easy to call him in case of danger. After he leaves, she reads Grandma Chun-suk's letter, which understandably brings tears to her eyes. In the letter, Grandma apologizes for leaving Do-hee alone to deal with challenges and encourages her to find someone to ease her loneliness, just like she used to when she was alive. Grandma Chun-suk also urges Do-hee to give up if it becomes too overwhelming to handle the company herself, and to save herself. Do-hee recalls the memories with her grandma and reflects upon her words. The following day, Suk-min refuses to allow Do-hee to perform a post-mortem on his mother's body. When she protests, Soo-an slaps her angrily. Despite the humiliation, Do-hee vows to uncover the truth and honor her grandma. In the meantime, the leader of the mafia gang, whose boss was murdered by Do-won, is determined to find and make him pay. Do-hee returns to work while Gu-won assists her. Our demon, who was once a human, somehow starts to remember more about his human life. He shares this realization with Bok-yu, who is worried because the return of these memories means Gu-won is slowly becoming more human, meaning he is losing his immortality. This concerns Gu-won, so he decides to stay close to Do-hee to recharge himself by touching the tattoo on her wrist. Do-hee soon notices Gu-won acting differently and is shocked to learn that he's using her as a charger. She doesn't let him hold her hands. Their argument back and forth continues till their ride back home. During this time, the mysterious woman from earlier, who had warned Do-won about imminent bad luck, sees them again. She continues to warn him cryptically, mentioning that good times are short-lived. The following day, Do-hee plans to go on a blind date set up by her secretary Shin with a man she was supposed to meet on the first day. Shin also informs her about obtaining CCTV footage from Grandma Chun-suk's house. Do-hee, with the help of a reluctant Gu-won, goes through the footage and considers using his powers to find the killer. Gu-won then makes her promise to help him get his tattoo back after finding the killer. He also convinces her to let him recharge anytime, anywhere. They sadly learn that Gu-won is unable to use his power to find the killer because he never saw the perpetrator's face due to his mask. Meanwhile, a man in a leather jacket visits Chun-suk's office and recalls their last conversation. In a flashback, we see that Grandma Chun-suk was disappointed in this man, mentioning how the apple never falls far from the tree. Before he left the place, he secretly swapped her medications. Back in the present, Do-hee realizes too late that someone has obtained the main CCTV footage of her grandma's house before her. She also learns that her grandma's laptop has been wiped clean, further stressing her suspicions. After work, Do-hee and Gu-won attend the company team dinner. Our handsome demon, who needs to recharge every now and then, repeatedly tries to hold Do-hee's hand, catching everyone's attention. He also refuses to drink as he's still on duty, while the others enjoy themselves. When everyone else is drunk, one of the colleagues questions why Gu-won rejected Do-hee. Gu-won confesses that he likes her, but humorously adds that liking pork doesn't mean marrying a pig. His response upsets Do-hee, so she angrily leaves the table. Just then, the mafia gang shows up and confronts Do-won for their boss's death. A fight soon breaks out, and a powerless Gu-won gets seriously injured. In the meantime, Do-hee frantically searches for him and tries to ring him. She eventually finds him about to be beaten to death. Seeing his pitiful condition, Do-hee courageously steps in to protect him, using pepper spray against all the attackers. Gu-won, moved by her willingness to defend him, grabs her wrist and asks if she knows how to tango. Confused, Do-hee questions why, and Gu-won explains that in tango, partners must trust each other. While this is happening, a mysterious man takes pictures of Gu-won miraculously healing his wounds after holding Do-hee's hands. Our hero then uses his power to lighten up the streetlights and magically makes the mafia gang dance to music. He and Do-hee also join the dance while, at the same time, he swiftly takes care of the attackers. The show ends with Gu-won holding Do-hee close and looking into her eyes as he wonders if he has fallen for her.